students, this is Seema Warkar, your English teacher, and today we are going to study another very simple topic in grammar, that is modal auxiliaries. Now students, we'll understand what we mean by the word auxiliary. Auxiliary means a helper, a person or a thing that gives help or support of any kind. Now, are we talking about people here? Definitely not, students. Here we are talking about an auxiliary verb. So, an auxiliary verb is a helping verb that supports another verb to convey the correct meaning of the sentence. So, what have we studied? That auxiliary verbs are helping verbs, and we are going to study about them a little more in detail. Now, let's take these sentences. Deepika plays tennis. Kapil acts in movies. Raj completes his homework and Leela goes to the Ram temple. What do? Let us identify the verbs in the sentence. So, of course, by now you know how to identify the verbs. So, in the first sentence, the verb is plays. In the second one, it is acts. And then we have completes. And finally, we have the verb goes. What do we observe over here, students? We observe that each sentence has only one verb. And whenever there is only one verb, it naturally becomes the main verb of the sentence. So all these verbs, plays, acts, completes, goes, are the main verbs in the sentence. Okay, let us now see another set of sentences. Deepika is playing tennis. Kapil can act in movies. Raj must complete his homework and Leela should go to the Ram temple. Students, almost the same sentences, one difference. Let us see what it is. Again, let's identify the verbs in the sentence. Students, here it is playing. Then next it is can act. Raj must complete. So we have must complete as the verbs, and finally should go in the last sentence. What is the difference here, students? Very simple. Compared to the earlier sentences, those sentences had only one verb, but these sentences, we have two verbs in all of these sentences. So now, students, we study that whenever there are two verbs in the sentence, the first verb is always the auxiliary verb or the helping verb, and the second verb is the main verb. Let's look at these examples. Okay, Deepika is playing. So is the first verb, therefore it is the auxiliary verb, and playing is the next verb, so it is the main verb. Can act, the first verb, auxiliary can, and act is the main verb. Must complete, must is the first verb, auxiliary, so complete is the main verb. And should go, should is the auxiliary and go is the main verb. So students, what have we seen? That auxiliary verbs are helping verbs. That is the meaning of the verb. But where is it placed in a sentence? Whenever there are two verbs, then the first verb is auxiliary and the second verb is the verb. Now, let's go on to auxiliary verbs. We'll study auxiliary verbs in this particular topic. Now, there are two types of auxiliary verbs, primary auxiliary and modal auxiliary. Let us understand the difference between the two. So, first we will study the basic features of primary auxiliaries. Now, they are used as auxiliary verbs. Example, she is singing well. Once again, the two verbs here is singing, but is the first verb, so it is an auxiliary verb. We are using the verb is as an auxiliary verb. They can also be used as main verbs. She is a good singer. Students, here which is the verb? Is, and you can see it is the only verb in the sentence, so it is the main verb. So what are we trying to say? That a primary auxiliary can be used as an auxiliary verb and it can also be used as the main verb. Now the third feature, they change according to the subject. They meaning the auxiliary verbs change according to the subject. Now students, let's take this with examples. I am a good singer, or we are good singers. Now, earlier sentence, she is a good singer. So, there the verb was is. Now, here you can see the is has changed to am and are based on the subject. So what do we see? That modal auxiliaries and primary auxiliaries are the two types of auxiliary verbs, and for primary auxiliary we've seen three features. Now we'll go on to see the three types of primary auxiliaries. Okay, three examples of primary auxiliary verbs. To do, that is the root verb. And what are the forms? Because students, we don't put to do in a sentence unless we're using it as an infinitive. But you don't say I to do, you to do. What do you say? I do, you do, but he does. And in the past tense it is did. So what are the forms of to do? Do, does, did. The other verb, which is an example of primary auxiliaries, is to have. And what are the forms? Have, has, had. Meaning I have, you have, and he has. Past tense is had. And the third one is to be. So I am, you are, he is, and past tense is was, were, and again in future we use the be form. So the to be verb has all these forms. Students, these are the three examples of primary auxiliaries. We have seen the three features. 1. Primary auxiliaries can be used as auxiliary verbs. 2. They can also be used as main verbs. And 3. They change according to the subject. Now, let's go on to modal auxiliaries. Let us see two basic features of modal auxiliaries. The first one, they can be used only as auxiliaries and never as main verbs. So, let's take this with examples. Karthik could dance well. Another sentence, Karthik could well. Now, if you look at the first sentence, we have two verbs, could, dance. In this sentence, could is used as an auxiliary, and this sentence makes sense. Okay? But look at the second sentence. We are using only to could over there, and could is used as the main verb here. But does the sentence make sense? For example, Karthik could well. Does it make sense? No. So, what do we learn? Could cannot be used as the main verb. So, once again, modal auxiliaries can only be used as helping verbs and never as the main verb. So, next feature. They do not change according to the subject. The modal auxiliaries. We saw that the primary auxiliaries change according to the subject, but modal auxiliaries do not change according to the subject. Let's take this with examples. I may dance, we may dance, she may dance. Whatever the subject, the verb is in the same form, that is may. So even though the subject changes, the form of the modal auxiliary does not change. So students, what have we seen? We have seen the meaning of auxiliary verbs. We have seen the placement of auxiliary verbs. We have seen the two types of auxiliary verbs, primary auxiliary, modal auxiliary, the difference between the two. And now, in the next module, we will study the modal auxiliary verbs in detail.